QE is over. The Fed's balance sheet is up another $38 billion this week. That makes it $150 billion approximately in just the last 2 weeks. Overall, since the beginning of January 2021, the Fed's balance sheet is up around $800 billion. So these experts that are telling you that QE needs to end, reverse repo is so high that signals that the Fed's going to have to hike rates sooner than later, the Fed's going to have to end QE. That's not what we're seeing here in reality with the Fed's balance sheet and the Fed's purchases of U.S. Treasuries, the Fed's purchases of mortgage-backed securities. See the Tavi Costa tweets I have there on the screen. So overall, asset price inflation continues and stagflate tax lie, while the deflationistas don't count asset price inflation or the Cantillon effect, even though asset price inflation and the Cantillon effect have been official Fed policy since the Alan Greenspan era. There's well-documented public speeches, op-ed articles, whether that was Ben Bernanke's November 2010 op-ed in the Washington Post talking about asset price inflation, promising the money supply wouldn't go parabolic like it is now with the quantitative easing programs, because that would be super inflationary, according to Ben Bernanke, and yet here we are. So this is all part of stagflate tax lie, where the definitions change, where quantitative easing has to continue because there is no real world demand for the amount of U.S. Treasuries, for the size of the budget deficits that the U.S. federal government needs to run, and for the U.S. Treasuries that need to be sold. So the Fed is the buyer of last resort. That will continue. And you're seeing people like Joe Biden and bipartisan support from Congress, the cons in Congress, talk about, another 1.2 trillion or so in spending. A trillion here, a trillion there, and soon it will be real money. But they're just throwing around hundreds of billions or now even $1 trillion like it's nothing. That's how ridiculous everything's getting. Meanwhile, here in the real world, since February of 2020, tens of trillions of new fiat currency and credit globally have been created, an enormous amount of debt at the government and corporate level that mathematically can never be paid back, and mathematically it can't even be serviced at this point, and yet the debt will still grow. And you have so many of these central banks globally, they've now monetized 40% or more of their total government bond market in just the last 15 or 16 months. Finally, if you like content like this and want to help keep content like this free so it doesn't all end up behind a paywall, or you just want more in-depth research content, information, and financial education covering global macro, companies, and sectors, I have that. There is over 170 now. Articles, charts, and audio podcasts behind the paywall for patrons, including 13 new articles out in the last 5 or so weeks, plus the 45-minute long audio interview with Sandstorm Gold CEO Nolan Watson that is exclusive for patrons, all for only $5 a month, the cost of a bad cup of coffee. So the dentists and the doctors that are harassing me on Twitter, demanding free stock picks and telling me how rich they are, maybe they can chip in once in a while.